Hi everybody, hello, and welcome to my channel. So today I wanted to talk about self-concept because it's a topic that is going around a lot in the manifestation community, and for a very good reason, because the way you perceive yourself quite literally impacts everything you do, okay? It impacts how other people perceive you and how they behave around you. It impacts the opportunities that get handed to you and things like that. For example, if your self-concept, if the way you think about yourself is that you're this unlikable person, that nobody really likes, then you're going to act that way around other people. You're going to be very shut off. You won't feel comfortable enough to share with others, like who you are, your ideas, and things like that, because you will assume that they're going to perceive you very, very negatively, right? So it makes perfect sense. Self-concept would be so critical, so important. And I decided to finally start digging into that a lot more seriously. So I consumed a lot of different resources on the topic. How do you change your self-concept? What do you do? What kind of process are you supposed to go through? And I came up with my own little process by, of course, using all these resources that I came across. And I ended up with this maybe it's like 5-6 step process of mine, and I'm testing that out right now. So what I want to do is just share kind of what it is I'm doing and potentially inspire someone else to go on their own journey of changing their self-concept and starting to experience the world differently and change their life in multiple ways, because now they will have this newfound concept of themselves in the different areas of life, which is a very key component of this. It's that you basically have a different concept in different areas of life. That's why, for example, you might find that your personal relationships might be going well, but you are not doing very well in your career, or maybe you're not doing very well in the fitness area, or things like that. So for instance, you might think that you're this very capable person, and you might have really strengthened the self-concept through action, because you actually learn to act in accordance with how you perceive yourself, because that's another important component that we're going to touch on, which is actually learning to act like your ideal self, by revising your self-concept and creating your ideal self-concept, and then learning to act according to those guidelines, I suppose, that you've set for yourself. So yeah, for example, you really think you're very capable, that you do your job very well, then what's going to happen is you're most likely going to continue doing incredibly well at your job, because that's how you view yourself. That's how other people started to view you, because you actually put out work that is good quality, because you've put in your all, because you think you're capable, so you do put in your all, you make effort to actually produce good results and to continue honing and improving your skills. So naturally, you are going to see that your reality will start shifting if you make that change your self-concept. Okay, so you might have a good self-concept in that area, and so you might be doing incredibly well in your career, whereas you might be struggling with relationships, which is something that's very common. A lot of people might be doing amazingly in every single area of their life, but then their relationships might be really low quality. And then there are some of us, kind of like me, that are, revising and need to revise their self-concept in all the different areas of their life, because all of them could really use a lot of improvements, which is completely fine. And yeah, it's okay. No judgment there for anyone that's still struggling or building out the different areas of their life. That's completely and totally normal, and you're normal, if you are at that kind of stage in your life where you're making changes across all areas of your life. All right, that's completely okay. So let's go into the exact process I'm using at the moment to change my self-concept in different areas of my life. So the first area I started with is my romantic relationships, not because I am planning on getting into any romantic relationships, but I wanted to revise how I want to be acting with myself, how I want to be taking care of myself and loving myself in such a way that in the future, when I'm ready to pursue actual relationships, it'll be easier for other people to mirror what I'm doing and how I'm behaving with my own self. And so it'll be just significantly easier for me to find a good partner that treats me the way that I want to be treated, which is best going to be, it's going to happen by me treating myself in that way. So the first step in my process is to answer certain questions. Okay, so I created one column. I used a Notion file. So I created one column where I went over what my self-concept currently is in my life. So I call that my current self, although in reality it's my past self, and that's how I like to call it, because when you've made that decision for yourself to be operating from a different concept now, from your new self-concept, then that person is your past self essentially. And that's how I like to view it, because it helps me feel like I'm already embodying that new person that perceives herself and the world differently. So that's just a little mental thing that you can do with yourself. So that's not going to be your current self anymore. It's going to be your past self, because now you've made that decision, and anything that's happened even a second ago is in the past and is no longer the reality, because you're constantly shifting. Every minute you are a different person, you're changing all the time. So that's how I view things now in my life altogether. So I answer specific questions under that column, okay? And then answer the exact same questions for the column of my ideal self. So specific questions that I answered were, who are you? What are you like? Okay. The other one was, how would you describe yourself? So I used different adjectives that I would use to describe myself. The other question was, how would others describe you? All right. Which I guess it will be quite aligned with how you would describe your own self, but it's still useful to answer the question. And the final question, which is so important, is what are your beliefs and assumptions? Because your beliefs and your assumptions are pretty much the backbone of who you really are. Because if I believe, for example, that say I don't attract men in my life for whatever reason, then that's going to be how I'm going to start behaving. You know, every single time a man shows interest in me, I will say, you know, he's definitely not interested. You know, he just probably hasn't met anybody, and so he's just, you know, striking up a conversation with me randomly, or he's just being friendly. So I'm going to start doing all these different things, and I'm going to not really feel very desired, you know? So that's going to be my reality, because that is the belief that I started believing in. Okay, that's the assumption that I operate from in my life. Okay, so super important to answer this. Okay, and another question that I added myself was, what exactly is it? What is it that has happened to you that's made you believe these things and start perceiving yourself a certain way? So I went over, for example, like certain traumatic experiences and things like that, you know, things that stood out to me from my past that really impacted how I perceived myself. So I went from the very beginning of my life, I guess, from like earlier stages of childhood to even my latest relationships, and how I felt in those latest relationships, or how those ended, and how the ending of those relationships has impacted the way I'm viewing myself and the way I'm thinking about my future relationships. So that helped me uncover a lot, because as I was answering these other questions, I found out that writing out exactly what happened to me helped me really dig into specific beliefs I wasn't sure I really had. But then I looked at certain experiences and it all tied together very nicely. So it helped me answer the previous questions, and I really took my time with that one. I really wrote a lot of different things. I just let my mind do its own thing. And then, you know, that helped me understand what my beliefs, assumptions, and everything are, right? Because usually when you actually go into the past, when you dig into your past experiences, what happens is you start talking about it in a very sad way. So if that's your story, if your story has been like very sad or whatever, you're really going to get into your feelings as you start writing out what your past experiences have been. You know, you're going to start reminiscing how your last relationship ended potentially, and you're going to start feeling sad about that or something like that. And you're going to feel certain beliefs really creep up, like, oh yeah, I really felt like I was not really wanted by this person. So you're going to feel something and you're going to write that out. So it's very, very helpful. So after considering what my past self was like and what my ideal self is like, what I did was I wrote a list of affirmations. And I'm trying to specifically adopt to this technique called robotic affirming, which if you don't know about, it's basically, the premise behind it is using affirmations which you say to yourself as many times as possible every day. So you're kind of saturating your mind so they basically become like very automatic thoughts. You won't have to think twice about something. Like, it will instantly pop up in your mind that this is actually my reality right now, and that will help you act differently, behave according to that new thought pattern that you have running through your mind, instead of the old pattern that was more depreciating, or it's sadder, or whatever the previous story was that you believed in. So what I did specifically is write a list of 7 affirmations. Affirmations have to contradict the points that you talked about in the current self column. For example, if you don't believe that you're meant to have a lovely, amazing relationship, then you can specifically write an affirmation that reflects that, right? So I am meant to find an amazingly loving partner, something like that, right? So I wrote a list of 7 affirmations, and what I'm doing is I'm robotically affirming each affirmation every day. So I pick one affirmation for the day, and I basically say that affirmation back to myself as many times as possible in the day. And I pick one affirmation to say to myself each day for the week. So I have 7 affirmations, and then what I'm going to try to do, now I'm still in week 1, what I'm trying to do is use the same affirmations for the week after, and then the week after, and do the same thing for about a month or for as long as I feel like it. And when the new week starts, I'm going to start affirming the first affirmation again, and then I'm going to say the second affirmation, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to be robotically affirming as many times as possible the affirmation for my day, until like my brain starts to recognize these thoughts as reality. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to do with that, because the thing is, when you've lived your life a certain way and you've always believed certain things about yourself, for example, you've always believed that you were stupid or something like that, then every single time maybe you're trying to solve a problem, your brain is instantly going to think, I am just stupid to figure this out, okay? And instead, if you've been saying that to yourself all the time, it's going to be super hard to break away from that and to stop thinking in that way. So if you start to robotically affirm a different belief, right? You create an affirmation that represents a belief that contradicts that. For example, I am, capable of coming up with solutions and whatever, something like that. Then you're going to be repeating that back to yourself, and you have to do it as many times as possible, and for probably a specific length of time, a pretty long period of time, to start recognizing that as your new truth. And then you're going to start acting in accordance with that. Okay, so that's what I'm doing right now. So I can't really report on specific results, but what I do know is that so far it's making me feel very, very positive, and I feel very good each time I actually affirm these things, and it really sets me up for the day. And robotic affirmations are so simple because you can repeat them back to yourself no matter what you're doing. Okay, so usually I do that in my morning routine, or whilst I'm making breakfast, or in my night routine, as I'm doing my skincare and all that. I'm just repeating that in my head or out loud. You can do that whichever way you prefer. But yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. And I just came up with this weekly system, and having like one affirmation for the day that is, that falls under the specific category that is my love life, right? So my self-concept, my love life, to completely revise my self-concept in that area. And because these affirmations are specific to me and my own current beliefs that I've held for so long, it's going to specifically help me with attaining my own goals and replacing the old thoughts with new, more positive, and even more realistic ones. Because usually our old beliefs aren't necessarily true, they aren't necessarily realistic. For example, it's not realistic for you to think that you're never going to find like a relationship or something like that, right? Because there are so many people in this world, you know, whatever restrictions you think you might have in your life, maybe you think you're not attractive enough or anything like that, which can be something you can reflect on in your own self-concept. You might think to yourself, I am very attractive and people really like me. I know they like me physically, whatever. You're going to say then that's going to be potentially your own belief. And now we're going to move to the most important part of revising your self-concept, the most important part of the process, which is to actually start living according to that new belief and the new perception that you have of yourself. All right, so if I think, for example, that I deserve love, or that it feels safe to take people's love in, okay, so that is one of my affirmations. So I'm not just going to be repeating that to myself. The fact that I have this new belief is really going to help me with acting it out. And how would I act this out potentially? I would by, actually allowing people to do nice things for me and, loving that, even though there might be like some resistance initially. No, I don't feel safe doing this. They're probably going to hurt me. They're going to do this, something like that. They're going to take whatever they're giving me away. Instead of believing that, then I am going to start believing that probably this person's gonna stay and maybe they're not gonna stay and whatever, but that's what I'm deciding for myself. That's what I'm deciding to see. And that way I'm changing a pattern. I'm breaking away from a pattern by simply just changing my thoughts and then just overcoming that resistance that I might have in myself so I can start acting like the ideal person that I want to be. Okay, and without this bit, without taking action, which again, action is going to be easier when you've learned to believe in different things, okay, that are more realistic, that are going to give you what you want. If you start believing in those things, it's going to be easier for you to act accordingly. Let's look at another example. Attractiveness, right? If you think to yourself you're not attractive and you start affirming to yourself, I'm attractive, I'm attractive, I'm attractive, people find me beautiful, whatever, then you're going to start viewing yourself as more beautiful. So it's going to help you feel generally better, right? So if you wake up every morning, you think to yourself, damn, I'm so ugly, and you just repeat this affirmation and you say, I am so beautiful, I'm so beautiful, whatever, you're going to feel better, so your day is going to be a little better. You're going to actually maybe, I don't know, catch glimpses of yourself in the mirror and you're going to think to yourself, damn, like, who's that, right? Cringe. But yeah, right? So you're going to do something like that. And then what you're actually going to do, how you're actually going to start acting out in real life is you will probably start taking better care of yourself, right? Because you're going to start to really see your potential to be more attractive, and say you will start doing your hair or you'll start going to the gym or whatever, because say I'm attractive. I attract people, the people find me beautiful, I am beautiful or whatever. And that's how you're going to start acting out in the real world, and you're going to start taking better care of yourself, and that is going to become your reality, that you actually do attract more people into your life. So that's it for self-concept. Okay, so I am going to make another video in the future, potentially talking about how this process has helped me. I hope that this has given you some insight on how you can change your self-concept, because a lot of the videos that I see in self-concept, they are a bit vague, and they mainly either talk about the importance of changing your self-concept without illuminating how you can actually do that yourself, or they don't give you a very specific step-by-step process to follow. So to sum up, my process is first, okay, open up a Notion file. The first thing you want to do is write current self, and then you're going to answer the specific questions that I'm going to also put in the description box below, and that is what are you like? How would you describe yourself? How would Alice describe you? And what are your current beliefs and assumptions? Oh, also the bonus one, which I added myself because I've never seen anyone mention it, which helps me uncover the answers to the other questions, is what are the experiences that I've had so far in my life that make me think that I'm this way, or that make me continue believe in all these beliefs that I've believed so far. said believe 1,000 times. Okay, so you're going to also answer that question. And then you're going to create a different column that's going to be about your ideal self. Again, your current self, you want to name them your past self. They're the past now, okay? Now you've chosen consciously to operate according to the new self concept, right? So then we're going to have the ideal self, and we're going to answer the exact same questions, which again you can find in the description box. Okay, so you're going to answer these questions for both of these columns, and then you're going to write out a list of 7 affirmations, and you're going to be repeating those affirmations one a day for the entire week. And you can keep this up for as long as you want, okay? And you can robotically affirm this, or you can also combine that with other manifestation techniques of your choosing. So you're going to do this, and you're going to replace old thought patterns, and you're going to start perceiving yourself differently and acting out differently as a result. The last thing you want to do and not forget to do is to persist. Nothing changes unless you actually persist. I might think to myself, I am beautiful and I'm attractive, but if I don't persist in that, if I let myself go, or I stop believing that, I stop putting in that effort, because I might realize all patterns are coming back up, and I'm thinking back to myself that I'm not really attractive, and that's when I'm letting myself believe. Or something happens in the outside world, something happens in the 3D that tells me that I'm not attractive. For example, somebody tells me I'm attractive, somebody tells me I'm unattractive. And I'm going to go back to the affirmation, and I'm going to stay, I'm going to believe in this new version of myself, and I'm going to act out accordingly and persist in that. So that's the most important thing. And in the end, you're going to develop such a strong concept that honestly, whatever you see and hear in your 3D is no longer going to bother you. But the hard part isn't actually answering these questions and reflecting on who you want to be. The hard part is actually persisting in that and continuing to be that when things around you are telling you otherwise. When, for example, somebody breaks up with you and you start thinking that you're unlovable, then you don't believe that. You persist in your self-concept, and you continue to have a beautiful life and attracting people that actually love you. And that's how you have a much better life, because you've chosen your own reality and what you want to believe in. Who you are, you get to choose that every single day. And don't you forget that. That's the most important takeaway of this video. So I hope you liked it, and if you did, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.